Hello, this little video is about structure in poetry and is not really trying to do anything about poetic form, stanzas, line length, rhythm, scansion, the sonnet form, the villanelle, whatever it is. That's a separate issue which can be dealt with later. I'm wanting a more underlying and basic structure of thought and feeling and ideas in a poem, which I think are more helpful in really understanding what a poem is saying. And as a starting point, I'd suggest you look for one of three kinds of structure in a poem. One would be a simple narrative structure, where there is a simple order and sequence of events, and each event may be in a separate stanza. Certainly, unless there's a time lapse of some sort, or unless there's a flashback or a flash forward, it's a fairly obvious narrative structure going through the thing, stanza by stanza, line by line, verse paragraph by verse paragraph, and that gives you your structure. The second kind of structure is at the opposite extreme in terms of being almost completely disorganized. It's like a shopping list. It is what I call a list poem, where you can change the order of ideas without really doing any great damage to the poem. And that doesn't mean to say it's a bad poem. There are plenty of very good poems. I can think immediately of one by John Clare, which is just a list poem, which is deeply moving, but it isn't closely structured so that you have to have the right words in the right order, in the right lines. So those are two. Then there is the kind of poem, and a lot of poems fit into this category, which is neither of the first two really, although it may include elements of them, and that is the single moment in time poem, where you're talking about an experience, a feeling. Maybe someone is looking at a book of photographs, remembering the past, or they may be have seen something particularly beautiful, or they may be seen something really ugly. It may be anything at all. It can be a feeling of being angry about something. It can be imagining they are in love, or whatever. But it's a moment, an experience. Quite some of the best poems of this sort come from a sense of loss after someone's died. So those are really, they don't tell a story, but there is a sequence of feeling, not just one feeling usually explored throughout the poem, and you can tell a development of feelings or contrasting feelings, remembering what it was in the past with the present or whatever, which gives you a sense of structure to the poem. So those are three fairly simple structures to look for. Then after that, you really want to go on and look for threads through the poem. There may be repeated words and ideas which give a certain feeling or emotion at that particular time in the poem. For example, if you found in the same few lines words like dark, black, evil, night, moon, and dusky, they're not exactly the same word, but they're related words, and those related words create a mood and atmosphere for that bit of the poem. And that is something you will find in a lot of poems designed to give the emotion for that moment in the poem, but then later on in the poem you'll find a different group of words associated with different feelings. Always look at the last few lines of a poem very often they pull together the threads, rather like drawing drawing a curtain cord to draw the curtain. It sort of pulls together all the bits in the poem, and the last line has a sort of punch to it where suddenly it clicks as to what the poem's really all about. Also, always look at the title. Often there's something towards the end which echoes something in the middle or at the beginning of the poem, a phrase, a word, an image, and try and see those kind of structures in a poem. Those threads are often very important. If there are particular words repeated, and sometimes there are, or sometimes whole phrases repeated at the end of every line, rather at the end of every stanza, and they can be obviously very important in terms of structuring the thing and stressing the particular meaning of that poem. So look at those kind of things, and I think you go a long way towards understanding the poem and relate it all back to the first two things we talked about, which was what the poem is overall meant to be about, in your view, at that time in your reading, and then secondly, why it was written. And you won't find the answer to that in analysing the stanza form or the rhyme scheme, but you will, in this kind of structuring, hopefully be able to relate it all up and see a sort of coherence and consistency in everything that you're thinking about the poem, and you're now beginning to dig quite deeply into the thing without being terribly technical, without knowing everything there is to know about the technical side of poetry writing. So that's it on this particular subject. Next time it's images, and after that we'll see where we go. We might come back to structuring of that more formal kind later on. But let's deal with images next time. I hope you've enjoyed this and look forward to seeing you then. All the best. Bye.